Welcome to today's podcast, The Call to Boldness. Boldness is not loudness, it is not arrogance, it is not aggression. But boldness is the quiet, unshakable decision to stand even when your knees are trembling. Many people want confidence, but few are willing to walk the road that produces it. We admire bold leaders, bold women, bold believers, bold voices. Yet, behind every bold life is a story of fear confronted, limits broken, and obedience chosen over comfort. If you have ever felt silenced by fear, or shrunk yourself to keep peace, or delayed action waiting to feel ready, or even allowed rejection to define you, then this episode is for you, because boldness is not something you are born with, boldness is something you become. So let's talk about what boldness really is and what it is not. Let's redefine boldness. For me, boldness is clarity with courage. It is acting in alignment with truth even when the outcome is uncertain. So boldness is not the absence of fear. Boldness is movement despite fear. Many people wait for fear to disappear before they can even act. That moment rarely comes. Fear doesn't leave you. You actually outgrow it. Bold people feel fear. They feel resistance. They feel the weight of consequence, but they act anyway. Boldness is speaking when it would be easier to stay silent, saying no when approval is at risk, leaving when staying is familiar, beginning when you don't have all the answers. And here's the truth that many don't like to hear. Comfort is the enemy of boldness. The more comfortable you become, the quieter your courage grows. Boldness requires friction. It requires pressure. It requires stretching. It requires making a decision. So if you want a bold life, then you must be willing to feel uncomfortable. So the question is, why do so many people struggle to be bold? Well, boldness is rare, not because it's impossible, but because fear can be persuasive. Fear speaks in reasonable tones. Now is not the right time. What if you fail? What will people think? You might lose everything. You see, fear doesn't shout, it negotiates. And the most dangerous fears are not dramatic fears, they are the subtle ones. It is the fear of rejection, the fear of disappointing others, the fear of being misunderstood, and even the fear of outgrowing your circle. Many people are not afraid of failure, they are afraid of visibility. Boldness puts you on display. It invites opinion. It exposes you to criticism. And that is why so many people choose silence over significance. But let me say this clearly. You cannot live a bold life while seeking universal approval. At some point, boldness will cost you. It will cost you a relationship. It can cost you a title. It can cost you your environment. It can even cost you a version of yourself. And that cost is the price of alignment. Let's take a look at the inner work of boldness. Boldness is not first an external action. It is actually an internal decision. So before you speak boldly, you have to think boldly. Before you act boldly, you have to see yourself differently. Boldness begins with identity. If you see yourself as not enough, too old, too late, unqualified, replaceable, then yes, you will hesitate at every door. But when your identity is rooted in truth, not opinion, courage follows you. So ask yourself, who am I when no one is applauding? What do I believe that I am called to do? What truth am I avoiding because it demands action? You see, boldness grows when you stop outsourcing your worth. You do not need permission to obey truth. You do not need permission to walk away from dysfunction. You do not need permission to start again. You don't need permission to reinvent your life. You need conviction, not consensus. So what does boldness require? Boldness requires decisions that you need to make, not your feelings. One of the greatest myths is that bold people feel bold. No, they don't. They decide. Boldness is a muscle for them. And like every muscle, it grows through use. You don't wake up bold. You become bold by doing bold things. Yes, you start small. You speak the truth that you've been avoiding. You set the boundary that you've been delaying. Make the call that you've been postponing. Or you take the step that you've been praying about. You see, momentum follows movement. And here's a powerful truth. Delayed obedience weakens your boldness. So every time that you delay what you know you must do, your fear grows stronger. Boldness strengthens when action is taken, when action is immediate. Let's be honest. Boldness will attract resistance. When you become bold, not everyone will celebrate you. Some will misunderstand you, some will label you, some will oppose you. Why? Because boldness confronts comfort, and people protect what keeps them comfortable. But you see, resistance is not a sign that you are wrong. Often it is a confirmation that you are being effective. Boldness exposes insecurity, it exposes control, it exposes fear in others, and that can make people uncomfortable. You have to learn to be bold without becoming bitter. You got to be strong without becoming hard. You got to be clear without becoming cruel. Boldness with humility is unstoppable. One of the greatest pressures in life is the pressure to conform. From childhood, we are taught to fit in, follow the crowd, and avoid standing out. We learn very quickly that acceptance often comes from agreement and that disagreement can attract criticism, rejection, or conflict. Most people do not consciously decide to become followers. They don't consciously decide to not be bold. They simply adapt to the expectations around them. Over time, fitting in becomes a habit. In the Penguin Club, this pressure becomes an unwritten rule. Keep your head down, agree with everyone else, do not rock the boat, do not challenge the direction of the group, blend in, stay safe, stay comfortable. You're probably wondering, what do penguins have to do with this? Well, penguins, they usually huddle tightly on an ice floe. From a distance, it looks like an ideal situation. Everyone is together, no conflict, and maximum comfort. None of them are bold enough to look for signs of danger. They would rather huddle and stay warm until the moment isn't safe. Nobody sets out to join the Penguin Club. Nobody sets out to be not so bold. Over time, people just waddle around in order to be comfortable and allow others to be comfortable. You may have joined the Penguin Club not knowing that you actually did. There was no form to sign. There was no official ceremony. You were not even qualified to be in that circle. You may not have even been there when the organization started. Yet you're suddenly in that league. Maybe you came through the back door. You were perhaps chosen to be in the circle because they knew you could be silenced. They knew you were not bold enough. They knew you were weak enough to be kept under the radar. No one pulled you aside and said, from today forward, you will silence your voice in exchange for acceptance. And yet it happened to you in front of everyone. One day you spoke freely. You had a mind, you had an opinion, you had a conviction. You questioned things that didn't sit right in your spirit. You were bold, even if it made people uncomfortable. Then something shifted. Maybe it was subtle. It could have been a correction or a moment when speaking up cost you more than staying quiet. Maybe someone in authority dismissed you. Maybe you were misunderstood. Maybe you were labeled as being that difficult or rebellious person. On your part, it could have been a realization that it was just better to be quiet. Maybe someone in authority dismissed you. Maybe someone misunderstood you. Maybe you were being labeled as difficult or rebellious. On your part, it could have been a realization that it was just better to be quiet so that you could be in the company of others. You took hold of that path. You told yourself it wasn't worth it and that peace was far better than conflict. You started to believe that wisdom meant silence and honor meant agreement. Suddenly, and just like that, you joined the Penguin Club. As you listen to this podcast, you may have recognized yourself. May you recognize yourself in the moments of hesitations, in the overthinking, in the moments you wish you had spoken up but didn't. It is not about failure, but in bringing awareness to yourself. Awareness is where everything begins, because once you see it, you cannot go back to seeing it. Once you recognize the pattern, then you can choose something different. This is not about becoming louder. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way where what you think, what you believe, and what you say certainly matches. As you walk through your journey of boldness, you have to ask yourself one question. Where have I been silent when I should have spoken? When you look around, you realize every significant achievement in history required someone to be bold. Every movement, every invention, every business, and every breakthrough began with a person who was willing to step beyond the boundaries of comfort and familiarity. The world often celebrates the outcome of bold decisions whilst overlooking the courage that it took to make those decisions. We admire successful leaders, but rarely consider the uncertainty that they faced. We celebrate business leaders, but forget the risks that they took. We applaud courageous individuals while forgetting that they too experienced doubt, criticism, and fear. And so the reality is this, that boldness is uncomfortable. It requires stepping into situations where the outcome is uncertain. It means risking failure, risking rejection, risking criticism and misunderstanding. Yet the greatest tragedy is not failure. The greatest tragedy is allowing fear to keep you from becoming who you were meant to be. Many people spend their entire lives playing it safe. They avoid risks, avoid confrontation, avoid opportunities, and avoid change. And in doing so, they also avoid growth. Fear has this incredible ability to convince us that staying where we are is safer than moving forward. It whispers that we are not ready. It whispers that we are not qualified. It whispers that we are not talented enough and not experienced enough. It even tells us to wait for the perfect moment. The problem with that is that the perfect moment rarely arrives. Those who accomplish extraordinary things do not wait until fear disappears. They learn to move while fear is still present. Boldness often begins with a single decision. It may be the decision to start a business after years of dreaming. It may be the decision to write a book, to launch a ministry, to change career, or even to pursue an opportunity that others believe is impossible. These decisions may seem small in that moment, but they often become defining moments that alter the course of a person's life forever. So one of the greatest enemies of boldness is the desire for approval. Many people are not held back by a lack of ability, but by a fear of what others may think. How often have you felt that way? They worry about criticism, judgment, and rejection. They spend so much time seeking permission from others that they never give themselves permission to pursue their dreams. The truth is that bold people understand a simple principle. If you live for people's approval, you will die by their criticism. Boldness requires developing the courage to move forward even when others do not understand your vision. I want to remind you today that throughout your life, there will always be people who doubt you. Some will question your decisions. Others will criticize your efforts. Some may even hope that you fail. This is not because your vision is wrong. Often it is because your boldness challenges their comfort. Your willingness to take risks reminds them of the risks they never took. Your courage highlights the fears they never confronted. Not everyone will celebrate your growth, and that is perfectly acceptable. The journey toward boldness requires embracing discomfort. Growth never occurs inside comfort zones. Comfort feels safe, but it is also a limiting place. A seed remains safe as long as it stays in the package, and it can never fulfill its purpose until it is planted. Likewise, people remain trapped because they mistake comfort for security. True growth begins when we are willing to enter unfamiliar territory and trust ourselves to learn, adapt, and overcome. Boldness is closely connected to confidence, but confidence is often also misunderstood. Confidence is not believing that you will never fail. Confidence is believing that even if you fail, you can recover, learn, and try again. People who lack confidence often avoid action because they want guarantees. Bold people understand that guarantees do not exist. Instead, they trust their ability to handle whatever challenges arise along the way. Failure is not the opposite of boldness. In many ways, failure is evidence of boldness. Every successful person has experienced setbacks. Every leader has made mistakes. Every business person has faced disappointments. The difference is that bold people refuse to allow failure to define them. They view failure as feedback rather than defeat. They learn from it, they grow through it, and they use it as fuel for their future success. Boldness is important during seasons of uncertainty. When circumstances become difficult, many people retreat into fear and hesitation. They become paralyzed by what could go wrong. Bold individuals acknowledge the challenges but focus on what could go right. They understand that uncertainty is normal, it is a part of growth. Every major breakthrough exists on the other side of uncertainty. There is also a powerful connection with boldness and authenticity. It takes courage to be yourself in a world that constantly pressurizes you to conform. It takes boldness to express your true thoughts, pursue your genuine passions, and to live according to your values rather than the expectations of others. Authenticity is one of the highest forms of courage because it requires vulnerability. It requires showing up as you are, as you truly are, rather than hiding behind masks designed to gain acceptance. So many people spend years trying to become someone else. They compare themselves to others. They feel inadequate because they do not fit into a particular mold. Boldness allows people to embrace themselves, to embrace their own uniqueness. It gives them permission to stop competing and start becoming. The world does not need another copy. It needs the version of you that only you can become. Being bold doesn't mean being reckless. Wisdom and boldness works together. Recklessness ignores risks, but boldness acknowledges the risks and moves forward anyway. Bold people prepare, they learn, they plan, and they evaluate. However, they refuse to allow endless preparation to become an excuse for inaction. At some point, every dream requires a leap of faith. So one of the most important lessons about boldness is that courage grows through action. Many people wait to feel courageous before they act, but courage is developed by acting. Every small act of bravery strengthens your confidence. Every challenge that you overcome proves that you are more capable than you once believed. The more you practice courage, the more natural boldness becomes. Imagine what life would look like if fear no longer controlled your decisions. What opportunities would you pursue? What conversations would you have? What dreams would you chase? What goals would you finally begin working toward? The answers to these questions reveal areas where boldness is calling you forward. At the end of life, most people do not regret the risks that they took. They regret the opportunities they ignored. They regret the dreams they abandoned. They regret the moments when fear convinced them to stay silent, to remain comfortable, and to play small. Boldness is not about becoming fearless. It is about refusing to allow fear to determine your future. You were not created to spend your life hiding in the shadows. You were created to make an impact. You were created to contribute, to grow, and to become everything you were capable of becoming. The path is not always easy. It may involve setbacks, criticism, and uncertainty. Yet every meaningful journey requires courage. I want to remind you today, as I come to the end of this podcast, the future belongs to those who are willing to be bold. It belongs to those who choose action over excuses, courage over comfort, and growth over safety. It belongs to those who understand that extraordinary lives are built one brave decision at a time. So today I encourage you to be bold, to speak when others remain silent, step forward when others step back, pursue the dream that refuses to leave your heart. Take the opportunity that scares you. Trust your ability to learn and to grow. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Sandra Elizabeth. I believe that you have been encouraged. Until next time.